seconds into that, guys. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle. We are obviously experimenting a bit with our introduction, so definitely let us know what you think.
Yeah.
John has an idea.
I want to test this out. I think let's see if someone can smarter than me. I think we should go. Good morning, America. Let's get ready to huddle.
I'm with Sean. I like that.
Yeah,
people need to let us know in the chat what they think of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, guys. So it's January 6th. We're 6 days out from New Year's, and I have to tell you, I've already failed to live up to my New Year's Eve promise or my New Year's Eve resolution. Are you guys actually making these and keeping them at this point?
What resolution?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. Fresh start every year.
What are yours?
Absolutely. What's that?
What are yours?
I'll give you one. Sometimes the kids drive me nuts, and I start having a drink every night before bed. And I've said I'm going to have less alcohol this year, and not let the kids get to me so much.
That's no fun. Sean?
It is for my health. It is.
I'm like more. Wow, that's. I'm gonna start rethinking mine now, Dan. I've like pledged to like be more logistically organized. Like I have a lot of different. I have like receipts everywhere, and so my goal is to be more organized by the end of the year. My goal was to start working out again, but I haven't done it yet. It's been 6 days. Former ballerina, professionally trained ballerina, used to do Bikram yoga in 105 degree weather. Well, as a fellow dancer, that's right. I wasn't quite to your caliber, Sean.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's practice and habit, you know.
We're gonna have to test this out sometime, actually. You and I.
Yeah, but I got a bad hip now.
Anyway, okay, guys, let's get to business here. But just a housekeeping note before we get into this, guys. Subscribe right now, if you can. We really want you to go to at the DC Huddle on YouTube. We got a number of new subscribers yesterday, but compared to the thousands of people who watched the show, if all of you went right now and subscribed, our number would be amazing. So please do that right now. In today's show,
it's free, by the way. Don't cost you nothing.
Yes, definitely. You can follow us.
All you have to do is sign up. That's like we're free to you. You're being asked to do is go to the DC Huddle on YouTube and on Twitter and on X. Sign up at our newsletter at thedchuddle.com. It's free.
It is.
You can actually send it to somebody as a gift. Like if you forgot them for the holidays and you're like, I never got Rachel something, to be like, I got you the DC Huddle, and just put that name in.
This feels like a Seinfeld episode of some sort. Okay, guys, so we're going to talk. We got a lot to get to. Venezuela's latest aftershocks. This obviously continues. Is Greenland next? There's a good reason to question that. Congress has a busy January. They're back and they're hitting it hard this week. There is obviously this tiff between Hilton and ICE, which we're going to get into. The internet's going crazy over this. And then we're going to try on a new segment called Tuesday's Trades, where we're going to talk about the likelihood of this or that happening and sort of compare our reasoning. But first, we'll do the daybook here. At 10 a.m., the president's going to be delivering remarks to the House Republican member retreat. This is at the Trump Kennedy Center. And the hope there is that he will sort of rally Republicans around their 2026 agenda. The problem is they don't actually have a 2026 agenda yet. Spoiler alert, this is going to be part of the discussion.
Sean, I assume this is going to be live. Like they're gonna broadcast this, I assume.
There's usually a pool. There's always a pool part of this. Like when the president comes in, and then when I was the conference comms director, we would have sort of a stakeout part where the leaders go out and talk, sort of like a normal conference meeting. So you'll probably see two things. One, them come out, and two, is when the president comes, the top is usually a pool spray.
So Jake Sherman will be live tweeting the entire time is what we're saying.
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay.
Most likely. Also at 10 a.m., Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, is going to be joining with Benny Thompson, who was the chairman of the Select Committee on January 6th investigation. They're going to be having some sort of moment of silence. Oh, no, this is a hearing. And then also at 5 p.m., Chuck Schumer on the other side of the Capitol, he's going to be joining with House members as well to do a press conference about this. Obviously, this has been a topic that has sort of been beaten over and over again. Dan, is it even helpful for Democrats to talk about this at this point? Or do people just, you think so? Okay.
Oh, of course.
I feel like the public is pretty numb to it at this point. But I digress.
I mean, look, I think for Democrats, it's the same way it is for Republicans to talk about the Russiagate, right? It fires up your base. It reminds people of, yeah, exactly. So, but I agree with you. The general public has moved on.
Yeah, nobody's changing their minds on this. 2:30, the president's going to be participating in a policy meeting in the Oval Office. And just a reminder, after we sort of go through all the topics, we'll be taking questions on X and YouTube. So send us a little note what you want to hear us talk about. Venezuela. Okay, let's start with element one. We've got new polling out from Reuters and Ipsos polls showing that only, 33% of Americans say they support removing Maduro. A whopping 72% of Americans say they are worried that the U.S. is going to get too involved. Sean, if you are the president, there are sort of two ways to look at this first poll, at least, right? Glass half empty, glass half full. Yes, it's only 33% supporting, but there is a huge chunk of voters, just as many, who are undecided about this, which perhaps they see as an opportunity. If you're in the White House, how are you reading this polling right now? Are you ducking for cover, or like saying, okay, we have minds we can change still?
I think a couple things. One, when you look at the breakdown of the poll, right, you realize that this is a reflexive poll. I mean, it's like Republicans generally support what the president did. Democrats pretty much don't support what the president did. And then independents are sort of not with you entirely right now. You got about a third of them. So there's an opportunity with independents. You're never going to get the Democrats on board because it's anything that Trump does. If he cures cancer today, they're against it. I mean, so I think that you have to take it with a grain of salt. Number two, it's a flash poll, right? I mean, I think if you asked me on Friday, do you support going in and removing Maduro? I'd say why, right? I now have heard the president, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of War, the Attorney General all give the rationale for why it's in America's interest, what we're doing and why. There's a slow burn that's going to come with this. So you got to keep going out there and selling it. I think the last 24 hours, they had an all hands on deck. So they are seeing this clearly either as just an opportunity or an additional way to sell it. I wouldn't be worried about this. I was completely not shocked by this at all. This, if you had to say to me, we're doing a poll, what do you think it's going to look like? I pretty much would have given you this.
I think if they can keep American troops from going back in, if they don't have to do that, and this sort of threat that he has made on the remaining regime actually works, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes more popular. Dan, am I being am I full of shit? Dan, what do you think?
Hold on, before Dan goes, let me just say this. Yes, 100%. Sorry, Dan. That's all.
Well, I think, look, here's the fundamental challenge that I think the Trump team has. They didn't run on this, and it's not what people necessarily voted for or want. Right, which is to say, nobody was going to bed Friday night thinking, I'm really, really scared about Venezuela and my kids and their future. Sure, of course, drugs is an issue, right? But I think the challenge for them is ultimately, we've always said this, people are like, what are you doing for me today with my life? This was Biden's issue with Ukraine. I mean, we thought like the Democratic Party, okay, everyone kind of doesn't like Russia and Putin. The world will kind of rally with us. Americans will rally with us. And, George H.W. Bush with Iraq. But fundamentally, people are saying, what are you doing for me with my life, with the economy, with the things that I care about? And so what I think the challenge is, Sean and Rachel, is you're right, as long as there's no troops, but as long as Trump and the White House are talking about this, meaning their focus and their attention is off our shores in another place, and people don't feel the immediate benefit, I think you run a huge risk. I mean, look, a third of Republicans. What was the last issue a third of Republicans were not in support of? When the White House was all in, and Fox and everybody on the right, not everyone, we'll get to this, were all in.
So I think your analysis is right, Dan, but I can answer it really quick. In Ukraine, I believe fundamentally there's like when you have to explain why we're in Ukraine, it's because of the, oh my God, I'm blanking on the agreement we made with them.
Article 5?
No. We made a deal with them where we said if you guys turn in your nuclear weapons, we'll protect you.
Oh, right.
I know someone's going to come up with it. Bottom line is that's a foreign policy argument. And then you can make the argument that, well, Russia, you have to stop them or they go further. But in Venezuela, as I've said forever, people vote on two things: personal security and personal economic well-being, right? And so one, we're keeping drugs out of the country by regime change. Two,
but we're not.
Oil will be lower and your gas and everything else will be cheaper. So if the White House messaging on this, hold on, but here's my point. You argued, how do they communicate this and get more people on board? I can make both arguments on Venezuela that hit both of the issues that people vote on. And I think they've been doing that. So whether you believe it or not, but I can actually articulate an America first personal message on Venezuela that I cannot do with Ukraine.
The challenge, though, often is when you're explaining you're losing in politics. And it's a complicated case to make. And Dan, just to your point, I was watching Fox and Friends just a couple of hours ago. Byron York was on there talking about this. And I mean, he's not exactly a Trump critic. And he was making this case about how it does take the attention away from economics, from the pocketbook concerns. And he said, the reality is that Americans just don't care about foreign policy. And they're asking that question, what do you got to do for me? And Sean, it's just that matter of making that case of like, this is what this is going to do for you. If of course they can live up to that.
But I mean, this goes to the fact that like the rationale is kind of evolving, right? I mean, it's drugs-ish. It's oil and gold and raw minerals, right? It's a regional play. Like, there's a whole bunch of things. And I think, look, even on oil, like there are stories this morning that the major oil companies are really hesitant to go in there without U.S. security protection on the ground. What board of directors is going to greenlight sending 1,000 employees into Venezuela with their families if there's no one on the ground to protect them? Like, you just can't do that. Yeah. And so part of this goes to like, if go back to the history of this. If you colonize a country, you have to provide the protection to the people going in to do stuff. And I think, and it's also on the governing side. So, I mean, I think we're going to get to that. But again, Sean, I don't think you can sell this cleanly to the American people. And that's the problem.
Look, I don't think it's the easiest sell in the world, but at least I can make an argument. And I think that's the difference between that and Ukraine.
Let's go more to the oil topic and angle here, Dan, that you just brought up. The Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum are going to be doing calls with oil company executives to sort of ask them, what do you need to feel secure? But you're right. I mean, gang activity, violence, and this is still Venezuela, right? And we also have to talk about the cost of all this, because initially the president said the oil companies would foot the bill. Now the new line, he did an NBC interview yesterday where he said that they will be reimbursed. I imagine this is a price tag that's going to reach in the billions of dollars, right? And they're going to Congress is going to have to appropriate money for something like this, right, Sean? Do you think Republicans
they could find money
with taxpayer money?
Yeah, you could find some money.
The oil company down there?
I mean, you can always look, the executive can always find money, but it's not an easy.
And this is where it goes to selling the American people. I mean, now you're talking about U.S. money. Like, I go back to the interview that Kamala Harris did on Charlemagne the God during the 2024 campaign, when the caller from Detroit came in and said, why is our money going to Ukraine and not to Flint? Right? John Kerry's famous building firehouses in Ohio, not in Baghdad. You start sending money to Venezuela and people start saying, what are you doing? Like, I get your point, Sean, that ultimately gas prices could come down, but it is not like, again, I said this yesterday, you turn a spigot and the oil markets are coming right down. It's going to take years. Companies cannot just build and move people into Venezuela tomorrow.
And the midterms are 11 months away.
Well, I think, by the way, that to your point on the meetings with Chris Wright and Doug Burgum, it's not just, and Dan's right about the people, but I think the other point is the infrastructure. If you're, Exxon, do you really want to, like, you're putting massive drilling equipment and infrastructure into a country that you have to say, okay, this year, next year, but I'm making a 15, 20-year investment. What is it going to look like in 10 years, right?
Exactly.
And so the question that I think is going to be really important in the next 72 hours is, do these oil companies say something publicly about what they're willing to commit to? You've seen the Trump administration really corral a lot of companies to make foreign direct investment in the United States. Now you're asking them to go the other direction. And after these meetings, What do they say?
It's a really good
and what
question.
are you saying to the people of Venezuela? Because you have some people talking about elections.
Yeah, I was just going to go there, Dan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me lay that out actually really quickly about the election piece, because we are now getting some insight into the administration's thinking on why they haven't recognized Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Machado, and why they're essentially propping up Maduro's regime with Delcy Rodriguez. There was apparently a CIA analysis that found that keeping the regime would be best for country stability in Venezuela. And Marco Rubio, himself Secretary of State, apparently made this case that if you did go with Machado, it could destabilize the country and might require a more robust U.S. military presence in the area. Except here's the problem, right? We're already starting to hear from people on the ground who are very excited that Maduro is gone, that they want elections. To your point, Dan, I was just listening again to Fox and Friends, and there was a woman on there who was talking about how her family in Venezuela, their message to the president is finish the job. They feel like they're still living in fear, and that a lot of these people in power are still going to terrorize them. Dan, you were just making, I'm sorry, I interrupted, but
no, I mean, this is the whole, like, then what? Like the day after. And I think this is where you really do get the sense, like, the plan is evolving. And I think ultimately, how do you allow them to have self-governance if what we're talking about is we're going to take your oil, or we're going to partner with you, but like we're first in line. It's our companies. They're going to get a massive cut of this. We want your raw materials. Like now you have people talking about all the minerals for defense and various, technologies that Venezuela has. So, okay, are we taking that now? And what do you say to the Venezuelans? Because in the history of colonizing a country, what always gets people in trouble is the locals want self-control, whether it's the European powers or anybody. So what are we saying to all the locals who, as you say, including, by the way, in South Florida, where they want these elections, no, we need to kind of take everything that we want and we're going to control your country, which goes to whose boots are on the ground to ensure all of this.
And Sean, before you respond to this, let's bring up element number 2, Ted Cruz talking about this and the need to move toward elections.
Things that are so consequential about President Trump arresting Maduro is I am hopeful it will, in short order, lead to free and fair elections in Venezuela where they can democratically elect a leader and have a free market capitalist systems where they can develop those resources, I hope in close cooperation with the United States. That will benefit the people of Venezuela, but also very much benefit America.
Sean, how soon should they have elections?
As soon as they can guarantee that we have a plan in place and that the elections can be held. I mean, I get a kick out of this. We are 4 years plus out of Ukraine being invaded, and no one on the left cares that there hasn't been an election.
Well, there's a war going on. Like there's a foreign power in there.
Right. But fair enough. But you still can't hold an election there, and no one seems to worry about democracy in Ukraine. But here we are, 24, 48, 72 hours out of this issue with Maduro being captured, and everyone's now suddenly like, we have to have elections on Wednesday. Pump the brakes.
We went in. Like this is our.
Hold on. Let me just. Yeah. I think we should have elections, as Ted Cruz said, in short order. But I think that, like, the first thing that you need to do, everyone's worried about boots on the ground in elections. It's like, let's get it straight. Let's make sure our interests are allied. Let's make sure that we actually have stability on the ground and that we don't have some kind of uprising and the military takes over and there's a coup. And then we kind of announce elections. I'm for elections. I'm for democracy. But you also have to ensure that you don't do it in a way that allows for a military coup and instability in a country that we just went and did something with to prevent military coups and instability.
Yeah, is Maduro's old regime going to allow free and fair elections?
I mean, this is the whole
I don't think, look, they have been allowed, just to be clear, think about it. They've actually happened twice in the past, 8 years. It's just that the rightful winner hasn't been able to take place. So I think there's a difference between the election and the installation of
transition of power.
So I think that there's a different issue here. But we should have them. We should ensure that there are not just a free and fair election, but then the rightful owner. But to the president's point, and to Marco Rubio's point, installing somebody who doesn't have the backing of the military, and when you look whether it's Panama or Venezuela, if they don't have that support and they get toppled right away, then what have you actually accomplished?
Let's move on to Greenland, our next topic. A lot of people, most of the year, I would say, kind of rolled their eyes whenever the president talked about wanting to take over Greenland. But I would say there's a number of signs this morning that we should take this question really seriously. Number one, Mark Caputo, who's one of the best sourced Trump reporters, has a really interesting story this morning laying out an administration justification for a takeover of Greenland. He talks about how there is an underpinning that is similar with both Venezuela and Greenland in terms of the administration wanting to have dominance over these regions, and that is the rare earth materials in both of these places that they can, basically help counter China, help with our defense technology and AI. So if Mark Caputo is writing this, I'm paying attention. Number one. Number two, there's also reporting this morning that the White House has actually written off certain offers from the Danes in terms of allowing American troops on Greenland. So Trump often talks about how he wants
already there.
Well, he wants more. He wants a stronger strategic presence, right? And apparently, the Danes have sort of offered to bring more. Guys, bring in more. And the White House has sort of written that off, which tells me that they want something more. So, Sean, just start here. If you were advising the president, what would you tell him to do on this? Like, is this such an asset that it is worth? I mean, I don't want to say shattering world norms because the president has done that already, but what do they do? What do you recommend?
Well, again, I just go back to the beginning, how you frame this. Like, if you talk to Ambassador Carla Sands, who's the first Trump term ambassador to Denmark, she's very candid that they talked about this very openly during the first term. So this is not some Johnny-come-lately issue with President Trump. He's been talking about this and planning around this for literally years. It's just that this time they've been able to probably spend more time out of office planning to execute. I think that they end up somewhere in the middle. There's arrangements which we have with smaller countries where we do have an increased presence. We're allowed to roam more freely and operate more freely in return for security guarantees. And I believe that, as I've said before with Trump, go look at how he negotiates. He goes to one extreme, knowing that he really wants to end up here, and he ends up where he wants. So I have a feeling that by the end of 2026, we have a much stronger, not just military, but economic, financial security arrangement with Greenland. And it is not understated the importance of those raw earth materials. Like, they are critical, as well as the positioning in the shipping lanes of Greenland's location. And right now, the bottom line is Denmark cannot protect them. Like, that's just a joke. So the reality is that if there isn't a threat by Russia or China to Greenland, then it would be wise for not just Denmark, but all of Europe to actually engage in a very fruitful discussion with the administration on what can be done.
Dan, I know you have many thoughts on this, but first let's bring up Stephen Miller's clip from Jake Tapper's show yesterday, which was pretty heated.
Formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake,
I understand you're trying very hard to, which again is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer
that says Miller refuses to rule out the United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. So
one last question,
Stephen.
Stephen.
Make any sense?
Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, look, it's
that
crazy.
wasn't the most heated part. It got even more heated
I mean,
after that, but that's a different thing.
It really is. You're just openly now saying that, okay, we want Greenland. Greenland should be part of the United States. Should China say Guam should be ours? It's in our neighborhood. We have an interest down there. Like, play out what he said. Should we go into Spain to ensure that access to the Mediterranean because Spain can't defend if the Chinese decided to come take the Mediterranean? Like, the logic of playing this out is literally just starting to say the three great powers are just going to go start taking land. I mean, this was Germany, France, and England back in the 1800s. We're taking that country and this country. And of course, what happens at some point is both sides say, yeah, we want that. Okay. So, I mean, the idea that Denmark can't protect Greenland. Okay. But to my knowledge, China and Russia aren't invading Greenland right now. Right now, I hear you, Sean. We want to protect the Arctic and we want the materials there. But that is another European country's land. I mean, it really is just, I don't see now how we tell China, Taiwan is yours and all the islands in the South Pacific are yours. Just full stop.
Sean, do you worry about the ramifications that Dan is laying out?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a difference, and that's why my guess is that we end up in a position where we have a greater strategic, which we do with a lot of other countries that are in the same position that Greenland is in, right? Which the bottom line, though, is to Dan's point, Spain isn't saying to us, we can't defend ourselves, so you need to come in and do this. Greenland is, right? So their position is, you will have to have our back if they do this. That's sort of the difference. So France or England or Spain isn't saying, gosh, if we get attacked, it's going to take you to come rescue us.
Sure, it is. Look at Ukraine.
No,
of course it is.
Which it probably is true, but the reality is they're not saying it publicly. Greenland is. They're like, hey, if we get attacked, we need you, and we need you to do this. And therefore, the idea of saying, all right, well, if we're gonna have to come to your rescue, if we're your daddy, then we get an allowance for this. And I think that is fair, because part of the reason that we have to protect you is because China's got all the rare earth minerals. And if they come after you, that's to prevent us from having them. So it's not just some random, like we're looking at you like a piece of land. Part of this is the greater strategic issue of, if we're going to be able to defend everybody, we have to have the tools to do it. And you have a good chunk of what it takes to make those tools.
I mean, the problem, Sean, is they're not asking us to come in and take their land. I mean,
they're not asking us, but as soon as something happens, they will.
But Stephen Miller saying it is ours. I mean, that is astonishing. I mean, you're just taking land because you want raw material. I mean, I know the chat's going crazy about why do I keep mentioning colonization? I don't mean it. I'm not saying it to be snarky. But what you're actually now starting to talk about, which is what the European powers did 150, 200 years ago, is to literally take land, to take the raw materials. Like, that was literally why they went around. They wanted our timber. They wanted our supplies. In Africa, they wanted, you wanted spices out of India. Like, this is why they did it, for commerce.
I'm sure we're going to be talking about this quite a bit.
And just to be clear,
last note here, Sean, we'll move on after this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just for the record, though, we do have it's now under the control of Space Force, but we do have a military installation in Greenland now. So this is not completely crazy. Like, there's already a base there.
It's less crazy. Not.
All right, let's move to Capitol Hill. Less exciting, although they are doing quite a bit there. Actually, there's a ton going on the Hill this week. A few things of note. The House on Thursday is going to be overturning a veto, that President Trump's first two vetoes of his second term. And this will obviously be Republicans who are voting for this. There's going to be a vote Thursday on Tim Kaine's Democratic-led war powers resolution to end the administration's effort in Venezuela. There's ongoing talks about what to do with these expired Obamacare premium subsidies. Guys, I mean, we could talk about every single one of these things, but let's just start. Let's start with Dan. What are you watching most as Congress returns this week?
Yeah, just look, all politics is local, and we started talking about kind of the danger with polling on Venezuela. Democratic Party needs to just stay focused. I think that the healthcare remains resonant. It is impacting so many people. People are frustrated. They're angry. I think staying focused on that, continuing to try to fight every day to extend those subsidies. And then I think this idea that the party seems to be coalescing around the idea that we are not shutting the government down. And that, to me, is a huge sigh of relief. Hopefully the party sticks to it. But I think just continuing to be, kind of front foot on these domestic issues while the White House is out talking about Greenland and Venezuela is a good long-term strategy for the party.
Sean, what are you watching?
Three things. One, yesterday, the HHS announced taking the vaccine schedule for children down to 11 to match the other countries in the developed world. And so, one, is there any comment pushback from Dems? Because it's funny how muted it was to me yesterday for all the talk. I didn't think either it didn't get breakthrough or it didn't get a lot, and I didn't see a lot. Two, there's what they call a minibus. So right now, 9 of the 12 appropriation bills are not done. There's a vote that'll happen on Thursday to tee up 3 of them. The thing that I find fascinating is, right, so the new deadline is January 30th. Of the 6 remaining, one of them is going to be national defense. So the Defense Department, the Department of War will not be funded. And so we're careening towards another January 30th issue. And how does that, this is just no way to run a railroad. And then third is this war powers bill that you mentioned, which will only get a vote in the Senate. So it's not going anywhere. But as I said yesterday, I think Tim Kaine, this is penny wise, pound foolish, because I think the Democrats going on the record saying that they didn't support removing Maduro may not be the smartest move in the long term.
So I have a question for you guys. So it's being reported that perhaps Paul and Murkowski and Collins may vote. Sean, do you think more than...
Literally, that's the question I had for Sean. If
there
will be more than... No, that's good. Great minds think alike, Dan.
Yes,
how many Republicans will vote for this, Sean?
Vote for
the Tim Kaine's war powers resolution.
I think that you're going to get Rand Paul, probably Collins, Murkowski.
Tillis?
Tillis is the one where I was noodling that one as you asked his name, because I was thinking to myself, I don't know that he's there, maybe, but I doubt it. Obviously, he's not running for re-election, but do you really want to? Again, this goes back to, you want to be on record? I think that's probably it of the Republicans.
I don't even know if Collins will be there. Well, I guess we'll see. But to your point, Dan, about Democrats staying focused, not only are they bringing this up, this war powers resolution, but apparently there's talk about going further. I don't know if these are additional votes, but keeping the president from doing anything on Greenland, on Colombia, on Cuba. So it looks like they see this as something that they can continue to return to the well on. Not exactly taking your advice on this.
Those are show votes, number one. Yeah, number two, as Dan said, I mean, look, I would say this, the last 50 years since Goldwater, I mean, the idea that you're going to tell a president they can't take military action is just not.
I will say though, Sean, to Rachel's point, politically, you look at that polling, right? I mean, just imagine if we go into Colombia or Mexico or Greenland, right? Just play it out hypothetically. I actually think going on record is saying, oh, no, you need to come to Congress to invade these or attack these other countries is not a political loser right now. I agree with you. If you teed it up and it was like a 2-month debate on why we needed to deal with the cartels in Mexico, perhaps it could become a challenge. But just right now, given American unease.
One thing that I think is interesting about these discussions that I hear on cable and et cetera, I think that we don't give President Trump credit enough for understanding where the country and the base is. He knows that sending 10,000 troops in somewhere is not a good look, right? He hasn't done it for a reason, because he gets the strategic value of what he did in Iran, what he did in Venezuela. These ideas that people are talking about where it's like, we're going to have follow-on troops and whatever. He hasn't done it. I don't think he will. And so the idea of, I think he might bully Cuba. He might bully Colombia or, Sheinbaum down in Mexico even. But he's not, I don't get the sense that this administration is the boots on the ground kind of, they campaigned against this. I just don't see it. And I think that when people say it, they misunderstand how he does get it. This is not like he needs a bunch of pundits on cable to tell him that.
But that's the $30,000 question. Yep.
You think he would just sort of let the state fall into disarray?
Oh, I think that but I guess my point is I said before, look at the Iranian movie and now look at the Venezuela movie. We haven't put any troops. We went in, we extracted a dude, we took him out. There's no boots on the ground there.
But this is the $1 million question on the Trump theory. This is what I'm going to write on Substack about today, which is we know we know the show and the headline. What Trump has not proven is he can execute the rest of this, right? Whether it's Gaza, Iran, and now Venezuela. Sean, is it possible to do something like he did in Venezuela, not put any boots on the ground, not spend any money, not have any real, other than just an aircraft carrier sitting out there saying, like, we will attack you? Can you kind of rewire everything? If he does, he's going to go down in history, right? I agree.
Yes, that's what I was saying. The popularity of this operation could go up if that 100% is what happens.
Right. Yep. People are viewing everything in the lens of like Iraq and saying, or Afghanistan, and saying, okay, well then you go in for regime change, you got to leave, 25,000 follow-on troops, etc. He's showing that you don't have to do that. Wow. And yet everyone wants to look at everything in the context of, well, this is how we did Panama, this is how we did Iraq, and it's like, okay, so far so good.
Let's go to our next topic, which is sort of exploding on the internet. This thing that happened at this Hilton with ICE officials. The Department of Homeland Security said Monday that a Hilton hotel canceled reservations for ICE agents in Minnesota, where the Trump administration is obviously deploying officials. Basically, someone at this hotel sending notes to people saying that they discovered they were ICE agents or that there's been a lot of Republicans coming in. And sorry, but your reservation is now canceled. Hilton has obviously come out and said that they don't support this, that they're investigating the matter. This was one hotel. My question is, how soon until Hilton Hotel's leadership is knocking on the door of the White House, begging to come in?
Rachel, I have breaking news.
Apologize to the president.
I have breaking news. I was just told in my ear, yep, I can confirm it is now Trump Hilton Hotels that will be.
No, just look at the Hilton. Oh, well, it can't be.
There already are Trump hotels. They're not as good. They are lesser hotels.
The ballroom is now the Hilton, brought to you by Hilton.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. They're going to finance everything, guys, from here on out.
Yeah, I have a feeling that there's going to be a couple meetings.
Look, I think the one thing about this is just a good reminder is all these companies during the kind of civil unrest of George Floyd and stuff that jumped into taking, clear stands on issues. And I get Hilton did not. This was a local Hilton. But part of it is when I worked at H&R Block, a third of the company's franchised. And so you have all these kind of independent small businesses and people start to kind of take this attitude of I'm going to take a stand, forgetting that, the name on the door is a giant multinational company. And I think companies are now trying to put the toothpaste back in the bottle about how to deal with this. There's a reason people used to stay out of politics, because it's a treacherous water when you start trying to make judgment calls on this stuff. And as you say, Hilton's going to pay an awfully big price now for one, hotel operator or manager making what's probably a pretty bad decision.
Yeah. I used to, when these things happen, I used to joke when I was the comp director at the RNC, you're technically the spokesperson for the brand, but to Dan's point, the franchisees, i.e. candidates in my case, would say and do stuff, and you get a phone call saying this candidate did this. What's your position? You're like, I can't stop them from saying anything. The same way that a locally owned Hilton franchise, they obviously have probably a greater relationship in terms of what they can say and not, but it causes great headaches for the brand. This gets back to this greater point. These guys want to get involved in politics. They're going to pay the price. And this is the issue. And again, when it comes down to something like a hotel room, you think about the left used to go nuts about people on the right not baking cakes for people and all this. And now you have the government not being able to rent room because a Hilton doesn't want to allow somebody because of their job. Who, by the way, are simply enforcing existing law. So I have a feeling that this is going to be a nice corporate, to Dan's point about like H&R Block, I think there's going to be a lot of corporate discussions going on in the next couple of weeks about like, what do we tell our franchisees that they have a responsibility to do? Because this is a massive PR headache. It's going to cost Hilton money to fix it because some knucklehead at the front desk was like, I don't like ice. So if I were the head of any other Fortune 500 or frankly, Fortune 5000 company, I would be having a discussion with all of my franchisees saying, here's the policy going forward. You don't discuss policy. You don't cancel people's reservations. You don't do this, because this is a P&L issue. This is going to cost Hilton money because someone made a stupid political decision. And if you're merely looking out for your profit and loss, you do the smart thing right now and educate your team.
I'm sure a bunch of DC consulting firms are all calling Hilton asking to represent them.
Exactly.
To be a fly on the wall. Okay, last segment before we get to questions, guys. So start thinking about your questions. Put them in the chat there. Tuesday trades. We'll just sort of keep your answers short, guys, so we can get to a bunch of different things. Let's start with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying the military has started administrative actions against Senator Mark Kelly. This could result in a reduction of his retirement rank and military pension. Does this go through, Sean?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes, and one heck of a precedent now.
Whoa. Just, au contraire, mon frère. I recall a certain admiral named Ronnie Jackson being demoted in rank under the Biden administration without any outrage. Thankfully, his rank was restored. But when this happened to Ronnie Jackson, and he was demoted years after retiring, no one had any concern. So what's a little really goose, fair good point, for the goose John. Is good this for the game.
This was over his job at the White House as a top physician, or what was the justification for that at the time?
They did an IG investigation and had concerns about how he'd handled himself years before, and decided that the adjudication was a reduction in rank. So he went from a 07, a 1-star rear admiral to an 06 captain, and took his, what happens. And just so everyone understands this, when you retire from the military and you are an active retiree, you're retaining benefits, all these kind of stuff, and get all the privileges. You can still go on base. You can do all blah, 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 blah. And Mark Kelly of the seditious six is the only one that actually is in that status. There's a trade-off that you agree as a retiree receiving benefits to abide by certain codes and standards, et cetera. So it's if you don't want to do that, then you don't continue that in that status. And Mark Kelly has chosen to do that. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I'm saying that just understand that this is the difference between somebody who served for 5 years, got out, versus somebody who's an active retiree.
Big difference is Mark Kelly is a sitting senator, and there are several Republicans going on record. They don't like this. I also think the courts will ultimately overturn this.
I was going to say,
courts can't overturn it. It's a military.
They can go. You can go through there's a reason that their lawyers are filing stuff, but we'll see.
Senator Tillis has been one of the people that came out and said Hegseth has overreached. We know he and Hegseth don't exactly have a good relationship there.
I mentioned this yesterday, by the way. Tim Parlatore tonight will discuss on the show both the justification for going into Venezuela, and obviously as a JAG officer, he will discuss the Mark Kelly situation. So,
okay, this one is more aimed at Dan. News this morning, George Conway is running for Congress, Kellyanne's ex-husband, in the New York 12th district, open Manhattan seat. Odds that he'll win the primary and become a major pain in the ass for the president, who very much dislikes him.
I'd say 2% chance he wins the primary. If he does win it, if he does win it, he'll be a huge pain in Trump's ass.
So this is this is just sort of to get attention, raise that profile a little bit, stay relevant.
Yeah. Well, doesn't he has a big enough profile, right? He writes for the Bulwark and he has all this stuff but I actually am fascinated, Dan, by why in that district, there's like 82 people running, right? Couldn't he win with like 12%?
The way New York elections tend to work on a local level like that, no. A statewide, like in a big race where celebrity could really matter, but in a granular, like, east side, west side, and down to the West Village, there's so many little political machines and people. I'd be surprised.
Okay.
Axios is reporting that Graham Planter pulled in $4.7 million for his Senate campaign. Chances that he wins the main primary over Janet Mills.
I'm going to say 40 to 50%. We talked about this summer. He did not die. And he remains pretty strong. And I don't see Janet Mills pulling away or showing real political skill. I think he may win it.
I'm going
to primary, huge problem in the general.
Yeah, definitely. Problem. I would say 60% chance he wins. I'm going to do something similar.
I was with you, by the way, just for the record, I was with you on that. My number is 60. I think he is, and growing, by the way.
Yes, correct. I agree about that.
And going up.
Yep.
Let's talk New Hampshire. John Sununu apparently has a sizable lead over Scott Brown in New Hampshire, 49% to 30%. This is new polling that's out this morning. Sean, chances that Sununu wins this over Brown?
75.
75.
Maybe 80.
Dan, thoughts?
I agree. Does Trump endorse, though?
Yes.
And Sununu. He endorses Sununu.
100%.
Yeah, he wins. Sununu wins then.
Scott Brown is very handsome, though, I got to say.
Okay.
All he's got to do is smile at the ladies, and they'll be smashing, a certain button for him. Okay, let's take some questions, guys. We got from Twitter first. We're going to go to Twitter. Can't read it quite yet. Here we go. What do you think Trump is really prepared to do if the Iranian regime kills too many protesters? Anything or just bluster? And if so, overtly or covertly? Lastly, will Iran be coming back to the table or make a deal, or will or can China have their back, economically speaking?
That's a great question.
I
assume that the movement in Iran is not totally organic, and that whether it is us or our friends in Israel, I'm guessing there are people on the ground in some capacity. But because the only way you could help would be to send the military in, and then whoever wins would have the imprimatur of the support of the United States and Israel. I assume that's a negative, but great set of questions.
I'll take them in order. What do you think Trump is really to do? I think he's willing to take similar action, make calculated strikes, take out people. So it's not just bluster. I think he's going to be willing to do several overt things. But I don't think it's an either or. I think there'll be some covert cyber type of things that could go after the regime. But I don't think that there's any question that he's willing to act again.
Cool.
Great question, though.
Yeah, great question. Let's take another one from X. Oh, yes. Durbin and Grassley feeling left out of the briefings last night. This is true. Curious Observer is mentioning I don't know if you saw this, Curious Observer. That's the name of the person making the comment here or question here. There was a statement by the two of them where they actually sort of rebuked the administration for not being included in this classified briefing, especially given the fact that the admin, at least for a while, was making this justification that this was a law enforcement exercise in Venezuela, not a military operation. So they're not happy. And Sean, that's pretty rare to see Grassley out there on record.
Yeah, I will say this.
The admin, right?
Yeah, except Grassley is an institutionalist. I mean, he really believes in his role and the Senate's role. But it's sort of, I get their point, and it's fair, right? But it's also like the Gang of Eight and the Big Four. I mean, like, there's tradition about who you brief on certain things. And so they have a point, but it's also like the administration's got a broader point, which is you guys always, if you want to be an institutionalist, here's what we normally do. So you can't be that pissed.
Oh, I think Grassley apparently didn't get the joke. Like, this is not a law enforcement issue whatsoever. That's why they had the foreign affairs heads and the armed services heads in the briefing. It's a military action. But Grassley, just apparently someone forgot to tell him, like, look, that's BS. And so he's like, wait a second, if it's law enforcement, I should be in there.
I feel like we're not hearing the law enforcement argument as much as we did in the first few hours.
Oh my God. I mean, last time I checked, who was it, Sean? It wasn't the SEALs. It was the Delta. Delta Force is not a DHS law enforcement agency.
Well, they were being helpful. Delta guys are very kind. They're like crossing.
Okay.
Let's take some other questions from the comments here. Okay, question for Dan and Sean. Will Amy Klobuchar's reputation as the boss from hell reemerge as an issue? Also, what do you make of the move by congressional folks on both sides to run for governor?
Yeah, great question. I mean, for those who don't know, Amy Klobuchar has a pretty rough reputation in DC. She has cycled through staff. I know people who have worked for her. I can confirm that reputation is well earned.
As a Hill reporter, I heard about it quite a bit as well.
Yeah, tough cookie to work for. It very well might. I mean, look, this is interesting because you already have an open Senate seat there where there's a heated Democratic primary. Republicans have not had success, I think, since Norm Coleman statewide. In the state. And obviously Trump has gotten really close twice, both in 16 and in 24. I think it was 1.5 or so, maybe 2 points in 24. I mean, Sean, does the NRSC and RGA go in as maybe a place, given there's all these openings?
I feel like Minnesota is the New Jersey of the Midwest.
Great
we get excited every time. I think they would definitely keep an eye on it. There's no question about it. The right candidate raising the right money against the right candidate. How this plays out to me, I think is kind of, this is a game of like the chessboard is moving. Yeah. So Klobuchar, does she run for the Senate? By the way, I was going to say this, like one of the things about Amy Klobuchar, she definitely undermines the Minnesota nice thing, but I've interacted with her a bunch of times and she's always been very pleasant. I always go back to a saying that I have, which is friends versus roommates. There are people that you are good friends with that you would never want to live with. I think from what I understand, Amy Klobuchar is that person. She might be a good friend, but she's probably a bad roommate. And, but
it also gets to the saying in DC that you should treat the intern with this respect.
Yeah. Well,
if you're treating people who have name recognition.
So here's how I think this plays out. Yeah. If she runs for governor, that opens up another Senate seat. Does that make it more like who does what's his face? Who's the guy who ran for president, the House member?
Ellison?
No. Oh my God! Everybody, he ran against Biden. God.
Dean Phillips.
Dean Phillips. Does he then, who passed on the governor's race, does he then say, "Well, I'll run for the Senate"? I think if you're the NRSC, the Senatorial Committee, and the RGA, I would sit back for a second and see who ends up in what spot, and then where do you put your money, if anywhere, because I think Tim Walz was a no-brainer, right? Mike Lindell is running on the Republican side. He's got some money, obviously got a name ID, and he could. I think he probably would have taken Tim Walz out. Now, who becomes the nominee? And to the broader question, if you go back to, if you've heard anything I've said, and we just saw this in Virginia, what do people vote on? And are they going to get pissed that Amy Klobuchar is a tough person to work for? No, like no one votes because they go, God, you're a tough boss.
Yeah.
It's just not. And it's the same thing we saw in California. People just don't go, gosh, I really like my life sucks. I really need someone to focus on creating jobs in this state. But I heard they're a tough boss.
Yeah, I'll just say I talked to a pretty high-ranking Republican, Minnesota Republican person yesterday.
I was just going to say.
I won't say who, but who said to me, "This is over. This is over." So like in terms of it's going to be Amy's. So I don't think a lot of people have high hopes.
That means she's not running for president.
That's the question: is does she still think of running for president? Iowa's not far from Minnesota.
But can I just say this? Like, I say this respectfully. It's not like I think that all of these senators, every one of them, thinks that they could be president.
Sure.
like, she's not one that I go, do we put her in the top tier? So if I think the smart move is to say, I run for governor, I get to be governor of a state, and who knows, I'm young enough that, you know, I
might be a VP candidate.
Right.
It's hard for me to envision her winning a primary as well.
I could say that about a lot of candidates, but you know.
Okay, let's take another one. Question: what are the chances that birthright citizenship and the Voting Rights Act go Trump's way?
By the way, I am totally, the last time I had Tim Parlatore on the show, that was the last question that I was going to ask him. And we ended up getting into this whole thing about the military. Like, I'm putting that literally right now. I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm asking him that tonight on the show. 100%, because this, to me, I love this question because I just spelled birthright wrong, by the way. When Trump brought this up, everyone in the media and the legal community said, this is settled law. And I can't believe. And suddenly the court brought it up. The conversations happened. So many times everybody dismisses what Trump says as there's no way until it happens. And this is another example. I am, as a guy who is, my entire legal prowess is watching two versions of Law and Order and Law and Order Criminal Intent. But I gotta believe that if the way that law is written in the Constitution and the way that we've carved out stuff for diplomats, that if you are not subject to our laws, i.e. you are not here legally, I don't know how you can make a claim to citizenship, which is what the Constitution says. So I do think that the court ultimately, you know, finds a way to say, if you're not in the country legally, you are not entitled to citizenship, which is what most countries do.
I don't know. I mean, I count me as somebody who, when Trump started talking about this, thought this was crazy and thought it was settled law. But I will say, I think Sean is right. I do think that it is not I think it's 50-50 on birthright. I do think the court may find a way to kind of, you know, draw a line somewhere that certain classes of people, even if they're born here, are not, you know, for the reason Sean just said. And I think on the Voting Rights Act, based on the questions that they asked, I think that's going to get struck down this summer, and perhaps sooner.
I agree on the Voting Rights Act.
By the way,
I don't know about citizenship, but
I think it was the Wall Street Journal. I could be wrong, but there was something while we were over the holidays where there is a whole cottage industry in China that literally brings pregnant women to the United States so that they can have a baby in the United States and get citizenship. Like, this is a cottage industry. And
it has been. I mean, Mexico, like, people come over the southern border to have their kids, and it's been it is, you know, it's been going on here since.
So is that retroactive then? If they strike that down?
That goes to what Dan was saying. I think that if, again, with all of I did take Con Law 101 and when I was in my junior year. So I'm going to,
so we're going to come to you for legal advice.
Right. Sue them. I think that the court might say, like, while we cannot retroactively revoke citizenship because people have made laws going forward, we do think, I mean, I could see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you could go back. Europeans, all sorts of stuff who came and people had kids and, you know, but we'll see. But I think Sean's right. It's not a slam dunk anymore.
Okay, guys, we've got literally one more. Let's take one more question.
Oh boy.
If we have it. Winner.
Do we have it?
Oh
yeah. Question: how did the Biden DOJ and FBI not uncover all the fraud and Waltz is implicated in? I thought those background checks matter.
I mean, that's the thing, is that I believe.
But isn't it worse, Dan, if they did and they didn't do jack?
Well, so I mean, it's my understanding the investigation started by the Biden DOJ and working with people in Minnesota. The question then is, to your point, once it became known, why was it not shut down? Why was it not clamped down? I think there's been a lot of reporting on why the Minnesota side, it didn't happen. Look, I also think, I said this yesterday, given that it sounded like it was known in the Walz government, like at the most senior levels, that there was this like brouhaha of something's going on, but hey, they're an important political community. I know the Harris people vetted in like 5 days, and I will give them some grace on that. It was such a short, super fast, lightning vetting process. But I wonder if it was known, even broader what was going on, and it all goes to why wasn't it stopped?
And has there ever been reporting? Just one question on that. Has there been any reporting or suggestion that the Biden DOJ was of the same mindset of Waltz, that you can't investigate these people because of a political blowback?
I mean, I'd be stunned if that was they slow walked some of the stuff against Trump, and the Biden political people were pulling their hair out. I mean, just the reality is that was not the most political DOJ, much to Democrats' chagrin. I mean, it wasn't.
Last thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, two things. One, I said this yesterday, and I said, if I were a governor, I would tell my team today. Greg Abbott from Texas, by the end of the day, said he's ordering, and I think you're going to continue to see this, right? Every governor got a wake-up call yesterday. But secondly, to the broader point of Waltz, if I know no one covered it yesterday because it's Tim Waltz, but I actually listened to most of his speech. Oh, my tone deafness. This guy literally got on there and said the Republicans in the state legislature are manufacturing stuff. There's a crazy right-wing YouTuber making allegations against a beloved community in the state. I mean, Tim Waltz came out and defended it. He didn't even, he's like, I just don't have time to deal with this. But like, this goes back to this. He is literally doubling down on protecting the Somali community there. I was stunned. And if he wasn't walking off the stage, this would have gotten a lot more attention, how he handled this. This was the dumbest political response I've ever seen.
I'll add one more stun. I was surprised Gavin Newsom put a statement out praising Tim Waltz. That I was taken aback, and he did it before he commented on Venezuela.
Maybe they're learning up from the president himself, which is never back down.
Apologize. You
acknowledge you did something wrong. You just.
Oh, I took that more, Dan, as a little swipe at Kamala, which is I'm going to be the guy that comes to your guys,
And she came out later too. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, it was after
her and Doug.
Yeah,
so cringe, man.
But it's that to me was a swipe at her, not
for sure.
And I was actually, I'm with you. Like I saw Whitmer. The DNC statement, these guys like Tim Waltz has always put Minnesota first. What are you talking about? This isn't like the guy got caught in a fraud scandal. Like I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Klobuchar herself actually put out a statement praising his work too, right? I mean, so like,
that I get. She's going to run for governor. Like, right, sure. I mean, that I give her a little bit of.
She needs all those Somalis to vote for her.
By the way, we're going to leave it there.
I didn't come up yesterday, but you saw Jim
O'Neill, drop the mic, Sean. Walk
acting off. CDC director, connecting the dots between the UN Somali ambassador and a childcare facility. Like this thing, I think this thing continues to get blown wide open.
Yeah, well, we'll see. And it sounds like Trump now has his sights on California, Illinois. What are some of the other states? Colorado.
Yeah, so all the blue states. Yeah, it's funny how that happens.
Yeah, it is crazy.
He's crazy. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today. Sean, do you want to tease something?
No, it's in Parliatory tonight at 6. We're going to do
the show.
There you go. And you guys should also go to the DCHuddle.com and sign up again for our email list, just to bring this full circle to what I said at the back of the show.
And RachelBade.com. Come on.
Oh, okay. We can put that up too. Subscribe at the RachelBade.com. That is my newsletter, which comes out 2 to 3 times a week. It's called The Inner Circle. It's a lot of sort of the inside buzz here in Washington. So if you're a political junkie, you might enjoy it. But no, go to YouTube, type in the search engine at a DC Huddle, and click the subscribe button right now if you haven't done it yet, guys, because it definitely helps us, and we want to see those numbers grow there. So appreciate your time. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30. Thank you.
Have a good day, guys.